Yo, MC Starman here with my friend Sydney Rumer.
Hello, hello.
Who is brave enough to sit with me on this playlist that we're creating called Mastering the Basics of Astrology. It's an MBA in astrology. And today we're doing episode number 2 about the zodiac being the symbol of the self. We want to welcome all of you. This is so exciting. We're up to 903 subscribers. We made it over to 909 centuries and heading rapidly towards 1,000. We did 100. We got 125 new subscribers this month alone. So if we keep going like that, we'll reach 1,000 in the next month, which is really exciting. So thank you for subscribing. Also, thank you for sharing. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for asking questions. All of these things, I call it massaging the algorithms. The more you engage, the more we grow. And so we're in this together.
Very true.
It's the same thing, you know. Sometimes, you know what you can do is you can turn on the show, and even though you're not watching it, it helps us. Just a suggestion. Okay, so here we go. We got a great show for you today. And with no further ado, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
I made the first mistake I said not to do. Very good, isn't it?
Oh, no.
Oh, well, you do like this and you click on the thing and then it opens up. So we do our own tech. And we don't edit, and we're so natural about it all. And a lot of you comment on how much you like it. So then that means you have to tolerate our mistakes. And I hope that we make it pleasant for you. This is the Healer and the Dreamer Astrology. Astrology, Alchemy, Dreams, and Jung, the Healer and the Dreamer, weaves an insightful tapestry using astrology, alchemy, dream work, and the analytical psychology of Carl Gustav Jung to bring clarity to the path of self-realization in our modern times. This is Mastering the Basics of Astrology. Number 2, the zodiac as symbols of the self. And what is this beautiful picture that we have here?
Well, I did think that I thought it would have been the north node and the south node being that head of the dragon and the tail of the dragon, but you said otherwise.
Well, no, this is very accurate and kind of, you know, there's no mistake as symbolism, you know, because the Caput Draconis and the Corona Draconis, the head of the dragon and the tail of the dragon, are ancient symbolism that come from India, and they're associated with the nodal axis. But this is the Ouroboros. The Ouroboros is the snake that eats its own self, but also gives birth to himself, which is a symbol in alchemy and in early Gnosticism of the balance between the masculine side of the personality and the feminine side of the personality, which is really what the zodiac is. You know, when you look at a circle, you look at opposites. Everything along the circle is the opposite of something else, right? So it's the mysterium oppositorum that the alchemist and the astrologers confronted with, is the mystery of all the oppositions that are created in the zodiac. And so in that sense, our study of the zodiac is a study of the opposites. So our premise in this video is the zodiac as a symbol of the self. So, what is the self for you?
I feel like the self can mean a lot of different things, but I would say that to me, it encompasses the wholeness of oneself. It encompasses the unconscious and the conscious, bringing everything into a whole, which is funny because that's a circle.
Exactly it. So that when we look at the zodiac, what we see is a symbol of the self. And the self is the concept that Jung created that was that he used as a scientific term to describe this wholeness that we're trying to achieve. And he looked at it as a conflict of opposite, the moon and the sun being a conflict of opposite, the zodiac, everything, it's all about oppositions. It's all about, the mystery of this, circle. And so then he taught that there's no better way to explain the self than through mandala drawing. So then we're going to share with you a couple of quotes from Carl Jung to get us started. And let's see if I can do it right this time. So here we are. This is Jung, and this is a painting he did himself. So Jung advised his clients to draw mandalas, and he explained, these quotes are from The Secret of the Golden Flower, which is a beautiful book about Chinese yoga. And in the collected works number 8 concerning mandala symbolism, these are from those 2 essays. When the self finds expression in such drawings, that's the mandala drawing, the unconscious reacts by enforcing an attitude of devotion to life. For in complete agreement with the Eastern view, the mandalas is not only a means of expression, but also produces an effect. It reacts upon its maker. Age-old magical effects lay hidden in the symbol, for it is derived from the protective circle or the charm circle, whose magic has been preserved in countless folk customs. But then we also address here the wisdom of astrology, which is all about mandalas. And so here we have the magical effect that the study of astrology has. So just studying the mandala and studying the chart has the effect that we wake up to our unconscious self. So through the ritual action, attention, and interest, we are led back to the inner sacred precinct, which is the source and goal of the psyche and contains the unity of life and consciousness. The unity once possessed has been lost and must now be found again. That's the purpose of astrological study, is to find our wholeness. So when we look at the center and the circumference of the zodiac, we are actually seeing a map of the process of reanimation of the balance between the masculine and the feminine in our own process. The secular movement thus has the moral significance of activating the light and the dark forces of human nature, and together with them all psychological opposites of whatever kind that they may be. It is nothing less than the self-knowledge by means of self-brooding, or tapas. A similar archetypal concept of a perfect being is that of the Platonic man, round on all sides and uniting with the self, with himself in the 2 sexes. And so that's also found in the Gnostic as the anthropos. So then, that's a deep dive into the symbolism of the self. How did you feel about that one? Did that make any sense?
Yeah, it did. It's deep, but I like it. I definitely like the self-brooding, because that's true. It's kind of how you slowly uncover that unconsciousness in yourself.
So, when we study astrology and when we talk about the study of astrology, it's like a practice of yoga in a sense, and we brood over mandalas, and we study them. And through this process, of concentration and meditation and practice of the art of astrology, we realize ourselves and we help others realize themselves. So astrology is a practice, and these drawing of the mandalas is an essential part of that practice. How does that feel?
Feels great.
We're doing great. Let's go see what else do we have in store. So this is here, and a woodcut from the 15th century. Again, we have the sun and the moon, and then here we have the circle and the point, the earth, and that little wheel there where we have all the signs painted upon, that's called the ecliptic. And we have the astrologer and his soror mystica, his mystical sister, and all of the alchemical facilities. And so from time immemorial, this quest of understanding the stars was a psychological process of understanding the self. It's like a religious, psychological system, psycho-religious system that is a map of the psyche. It's fascinating stuff. So the center and the circle, some words for you to remember: geocentric. So our system, geocentric, it means the earth is the center. Heliocentric system means the sun is the center. And so the Hindu astrology, Vedic astrology, is heliocentric based, and it's based on the constellation. It's really a different zodiac and different system. This is based on the progression of the equinoxes and the solstices. That's our geocentric system. And the circle where the planets apparently move on is called the ecliptic. So then we learn about the personal and the collective. We have the two directions of the movement, clockwise and counterclockwise. We have the houses and the signs, the four quadrants, the four seasons, the four directions, the four elements, and the four functions. And we'll get into this in this video series. So let's flesh this out in terms of the two directions and the four seasons. So here we have the zodiac, we have the center, the ego, and then we have the whole self, right? Now, there's two movements. So that's something to remember, is when you look at the system, when you look at a chart, it's actually two systems so superimposed on each other. So there's first the movement counterclockwise of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. That's the movement, and the planets move along the ecliptic in that counterclockwise. So when you're looking at the chart, you're seeing the planets are moving that way, unless, of course, they're moving retrograde, which they appear they're moving backwards. So that's the movement. And here we have spring, summer, fall, and winter. Those are the four cardinal points and the movements of the planets in that direction. What's the second movement?
Second movement would be the house system.
The house system. So, but see, we put the house first, house, second house, third house, fourth house. So it seems like it's moving in the same direction.
It does. And I thought that for a long time until you corrected me.
Well, it's very important to understand that the reason why they call it the first house is because it's the first one to rise. So that's called traditionally the ascendant. So whenever you do a chart, you draw a chart for a moment in time from the perspective of the earth, and you draw a line to the eastern sign, to the eastern, to the point where the sun rises. And you keep on that line and you go all the way to the ecliptic. And when that line hits the ecliptic, that's the rising sign or the ascendant. And the first house is the first one to cross that point. And so in understanding that, then you have this movement counterclockwise and that movement, and all the planets are superimposed. So that this wheel, so then these 4 points change in the houses. That's the rising sign or the ascendant. That's the MC or noon. That's the descendant or sunset. And that's the midnight or the nadir point. So they change definitions depending on the perspective that you look at them from. This is the spring point. This is the summer point. This is fall. This is the beginning of winter. But it's also the rising, high noon, setting of the sun, midnight. So it's 2 definitions. And all of that makes component of the self. So it's really fascinating, and understanding this is really the basics of astrology, because when you get into chart analysis and trying to understand what the chart is saying, you have to understand these 2. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Really important to understand the difference. And in future videos, we're going to do a video on the houses, and we'll do a video on the signs, and we are a whole bunch more stuff to go over. This is just video number 2, and there's going to be a lot of them. Exciting. Are you excited about this?
I'm excited.
I'm so glad that you're contributing. I always think that it's so much easier to do it with another live human being than to just sit there and tell the screen what's going on. And she basically replaces you. But if you have any questions, there's a comment section, and we'll answer your question in our next video if you like. So please engage, massage the algorithms. So where we are, boom, boom. So now we look at this symbol. So this is stripped of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have the circle in the center. What symbol is that?
That's the symbol of the sun in astrology.
So what does the symbol of the sun symbolize?
The ego.
The ego is the center, and the fullness of consciousness, or what we're seeking to grow into. You know, so then there's the individual in the wholeness of the world. And so the center in the circle, or what's the point to it all? You know, what's the point? You know, what's the point to it all? Well, that's the point. The sun is the point, is to shine my light into the world. We also have the ego, the center of consciousness, and the self, the whole circle. We have me in the world. We have consciousness and unconsciousness. We have geocentric and heliocentric, and we have the ecliptic. All terminology that you need to be familiar with. How does that feel?
Feels good. And I feel that it's needed in today for people to really uncover parts of their psyche that's just left hidden.
It's really important as you study astrology to learn these terms and to become familiar with them. Here's a few more terms for you. This line here that separates the zodiac into 2, it's the horizon. This horizon separates in the chart between day and night, between light and dark, between masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, east, west, the ascendant, the descendant, me and the other. These are all, so really, you know, just looking at the half, you know, a circle like that with the line in the middle, you know, it doesn't seem like much, but all these things are symbolized in this. And to learning this, This is also, you know, the line between the spring equinox and the fall equinox, or the beginning of spring and the beginning of fall. So those are all meanings of that one line, and that's the horizon. The other line is the meridian. Separates the chart like that between noon and midnight. Also north and south. The medium coeli and the imam coeli, or the middle of the sky and the bottom of the sky. The roots of the tree, the fruits of the tree. So when you look at this form here with the cross, what you're looking at is you're looking at the person, you're looking at his relationships, you're looking at the roots of the personality, and you're looking at what the personality contributes, its fruits. And then doing these, you know, everything that we talked about today, and as you get familiar with all of these things, I really recommend that you draw some mandalas like this to help you understand. And these are just not new practices. The alchemists and the early philosophers did all kinds of really cool mandalas to explain this process. Here you have the zodiac and the 3 and the 4. Our next video is going to be called the Axiom of Maria, which is a very interesting alchemical concept that helps us understand how the zodiac works in terms of a psychological analysis, but also a deep, profound spiritual analysis. And it's one of Jung's most interesting esoteric contributions to astrology. And so it forms one of the foundations of understanding of astrology, but it's one of the most esoteric aspects of Jungian psychology. So that's what's going to be our next video. The Axiom of Maria and how it relates to astrology. And here it is being pictured. We have the 3 and the 4. We have the dragon again, the Ouroboros. And then we have Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, Mars and Venus, and the sun and the moon. And you had a question about that.
I did, and I was wondering what it means having Mercury in between, because Mercury is meant to represent duality.
Well, in the Axiom of Maria and in Jungian psychology, in Jung's deep studies in alchemy, he explained the role of Mercurius, or Hermes, or Mercury. And so if you look at the glyph, here we have the sign Gemini, and we have the glyph of Mercury. I don't know if you can see that, but basically what you have is you have the sun, and then you have the moon as a hat to the sun, and then you have the cross of matter. That's the symbol of Mercury. So Mercury is the priest that unites the sun and the moon in a sacred marriage. And that's the role of what Jung called the uniting third. And we're going to get deep into that when we talk about the function of the third in relation to the 4 and the 1 and the 2, which is the basics of the Axiom of Maria. And it is a profound way of looking at the process of individuation and the astrological wheel. Once you know the Axiom of Maria, you'll never look at the zodiac the same way again.
Oh,
it's really
excited for this.
Yes, it's really fascinating how it works. So what else do we have? Oh yeah, we have one more picture. So then we have the alchemist. So in the days of the alchemist, alchemy and astrology were known as sisters. And so the alchemist was also an astrologer. And the alchemist did all of his studies of alchemy based on the proper time to do his experiments. So he used astrology and alchemy together, and that's how we use astrology. Astrology is a tool for alchemical transformation. That's why we study. And here's the alchemist, and he's studying the circle, the center, and then here's the balance of the feminine and masculine, and the 3 and the 4. And so these are all symbols that were elaborated upon in alchemy, and that are all included in this beautiful table. So that was our the Zodiac, a symbol of the self, our second episode. How did we do?
I think we did really good.
Any other questions you may have?
No, but I was gonna mention that I find it funny having the how you say just kind of the bottom being the bottom of the horizon being where, you know, the darkness is and the roots of your being, top being the fruits of your labor. And in medical astrology, from what I've learned so far, is if you are at a balance and you have a lot of your planets at the top, then you would want to be having root herbs to help balance it out. And then if you have more of your planets kind of like coming up to the top, you're going to have a flower, and that's going to be more of your medicine. So I find it interesting that it does fully correlate there.
That's exciting. So Sydney is a student in herbalism at Pacific Rim College, and she wants to become a herbalist astrologer.
Yeah, that's the goal.
And we started this video series together as a means for her to develop her skills as an astrologer, and we're taking you guys along with it. And we're so grateful for your support, and we'll keep them coming.
Yeah, just keep learning. There's so much to learn.
Thank you, Sydney. We'll see you guys later. Oh yeah, we gotta